Welcome to The Explainer. Now, if you're tuning in expecting a standard plot summary of Herman Melville's masterpiece, a basic recounting of a fishing trip gone horribly wrong, or maybe a 200-page encyclopedia on whale blubber, well, we are skipping all of that today. We're plunging straight into the epic psychological abyss of Moby-Dick. We're going to look at the deep symbolic layers, the descent into madness, and the sheer mythic weight of a text that is honestly as unfathomable as the ocean itself.
Because let's get one thing straight right off the bat. This isn't just a story about the 19th century whaling industry. It is a full-blown cosmic tragedy. What we're really looking at here is a fatal, elemental struggle between human obsession and the absolute, unstoppable force of nature. It's man trying to conquer the unconquerable. And right at the dead center of this massive storm is, of course, Captain Ahab. But to really get Ahab, to truly understand him, we have to look at the specific clinical nature of his psychological break.
So, let's define exactly what we're dealing with here. Monomania. Have you ever had a thought that you just couldn't shake? Okay, now multiply that by 1,000. We are talking about a clinical, fanatical devotion to one single subject. It's not just, a general anger or holding a grudge. It's a form of mental illness characterized by repetitive, intrusive thoughts, an absolute blinding obsession. Ahab's unchecked monomania to destroy the white whale just because it took his leg isn't just his own individual descent into madness. It becomes this massive, terrifying gravitational pull. He literally manipulates his entire crew right down to nailing a gold doubloon to the mast as a bounty. He ignores every rational warning, completely abandons human connection, and just drags everyone around him into his own personal doom.
And this monomania, it highlights a massive, massive contrast in the novel. On the surface, you've got man's completely arrogant attempt to exploit nature. The entire whaling industry basically represents humanity's hubris, treating the vast, wild ocean as just a resource to be controlled, categorized, and profited from. The crew literally tries to scientifically classify whales and establish legal rules for owning them. But it all falls completely short. Why? Because it's contrasted with nature's absolute indifference, which is perfectly embodied by Moby-Dick. The white whale absolutely cannot be controlled, predicted, or conquered. Every single time Ahab confronts him, the whale proves more powerful. Melville is essentially showing us that the ocean gives and takes entirely on its own terms, completely indifferent to human ambition and our, quite frankly, fragile illusions of control.
Section 1. The Psyche of the Crew. Observers and Rationalists. So think about it. How do you actually survive when you're locked on a vessel with a literal madman? Well, it all comes down to psychology. Let's look at Ishmael first. He's our narrator, our wandering philosophical observer. He approaches the world with this incredible open curiosity and fluid agency. A perfect example of this is his immediate open-minded friendship with the pagan harpooner Queequeg, which totally defies all the rigid cultural expectations of his time. And it's exactly because of this open, inquiring nature that Ishmael actually survives. But then, on the flip side, we have Starbuck, the first mate. He represents grounded rationality. He's an Orthodox Christian. You'd really think he'd be the guy to step up and stop Ahab, right? But he doesn't. He is ultimately paralyzed. The text shows us how he just cannot withstand the spiritual terror of Ahab's great evil willpower. Starbuck is the rational good man, but he ends up helplessly watching the ship fall into the abyss simply because his grounded morality is absolutely no match for the sheer irrational force of Ahab's madness.
Now, as the Pequod sets sail, our narrative really scales up. We move from the claustrophobic, intense minds of the crew out onto a massive global stage. They are literally sailing across the known world pursuing a ghost. It's a grand, epic tragedy playing out on the widest canvas imaginable. But here's the thing. Melville didn't just use geography to give the story this massive scale. He actually reached deep into ancient texts to do it.
Section 2. The Mythic Weight. Biblical Allegories.
To grasp the true weight of this text, we really have to look at how Melville engineered his characters, using massive Old Testament archetypes. He absolutely wanted this novel to carry the heavy weight of a classic epic tragedy. Take a look at Ahab. He shares his name with the wicked king of Israel, who defied forces beyond human control and, met a very violent end. Captain Ahab is practically genetically doomed by his own namesake to defy the gods and pay the ultimate price. Then there's Ishmael, named after the outcast son of Abraham. Just as the biblical Ishmael was cast into the desert, our Ishmael is self-cast into a wilderness of water to wander, seek truth, and ultimately find redemption as the sole survivor. We even get a character named Elijah, who shows up right before they sail, delivering these cryptic, completely ignored warnings of impending doom, perfectly mirroring the biblical prophet. It's all incredibly intentional.
Just listen to the terrifying power of Ahab's defiance for a second. "O thou clear spirit of clear fire, I now know that thy right worship is defiance." Wow, Ahab isn't just some disgruntled sea captain here. He is literally acting as a pagan worshiping a spirit of fire. He arrogantly refuses to adjust to the destructive elements around him. In fact, he wants to identify with them. He actually declares himself a true child of fire. It is completely apocalyptic, and it perfectly captures his absolute, stubborn refusal to bow to anything, whether human or divine.
Section 3. The Abyss. Decoding the White Whale. So, if Ahab is this unstoppable force of defiance, what exactly is he defying? Well, Moby-Dick himself totally refuses to be pinned down to a single meaning. It's like a giant Rorschach test. Each character projects their own inner reality right onto the void of the whale. Ahab, as we know, sees the whale as the ultimate embodiment of all evil, a malicious, intelligent force that he simply must destroy. Starbuck, ever the practical one, just sees a dumb animal and views the entire hunt as a dangerous madness that's threatening their lives and, importantly, their profits. And Ishmael? He connects the whale to purity, divinity, terror, and absolute blankness all at the exact same time. The truly brilliant thing Melville does here is make Moby-Dick resist human interpretation just as fiercely as he resists the harpoon.
Which brings us to Ishmael's ultimate, horrifying realization. It was the whiteness of the whale that above all things appalled me. I want you to really, really think about that brilliant piece of prose for a second. It wasn't the teeth, it wasn't the massive size or the physical danger, it was the whiteness, the terrifying, completely unknowable blankness. Staring at Moby-Dick is literally like staring directly into the void. It's this vertigo-inducing realization that the universe might not actually be hostile. It might just be completely indifferent and entirely empty of all the meaning we so desperately try to project onto it. Which leads us to our final thought for today's explainer. Is the whale a malicious god, or is it really just a blank canvas for our own madness? Ahab thought he was fighting a supreme evil, but honestly, perhaps he was just fighting a mirror the whole time. Melville's masterpiece ultimately forces us to stare right into the depths and confront our own reflections. When we look into the unknowable, what is it that we actually see? Is it our own obsession? Our own terror? Keep that question with you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and as always, keep exploring the depths.